conversation. We're going live right now. I'm gonna do my quick little intro thing, and then I'll just throw it to you. All right, dog?
All right.
All right, going live in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, good afternoon, and good whatever time it is, and welcome to another episode of TREVANTINE, the podcast in which you get to hear the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of an 18-year-old senior in high school being affected by the coronavirus. With me today, I have one of my dearest debate friends, longtime friend since like elementary school, preschool even, yeah, Mr. Bill Bendure, man of the jack of all trades, knowing everything. Will, how are we doing today?
Well, it is Saturday, so my 25 minutes of schoolwork didn't have to be done today. But that's the only positive, I guess.
So are you not down with this online school business?
Well, I'm down with it in the sense that it's super easy. I guess I'd rather go to school though, to see people. But yeah, I guess everybody's just glad that it's easy, but nobody would rather have this situation than actually being at school, especially the seniors.
When you heard the news, how'd it feel? Were you impacted pretty heavily by
Uh,
it?
no, because I was like really expecting that to happen already. Like I was not phased because I had already kind of realized that we were going to be out for the rest of the year. Um, and like the thing is, even though we aren't going to be able to go back this year, I mean, I bet there's going to be like one day next year, um, in like in the 2021 school year, where everybody's just gonna like agree to come back and see teachers again, and say hi to our younger, like lower classmen friend. So I bet something like that's gonna get organized. So I mean, it's like it's not the end of the world. We're still gonna see each other. I mean, like I think the problem was that the school like had set a new date for coming back, which like it's good to have that planned, but when they rescheduled prom and said like this was the date, I think that just got a lot of people's hopes up, and they thought, okay, well, if the school is saying this, then that's sort of like when things are planning to be over, or back when we can have gatherings again, and they sort of just set themselves up to be disappointed, for all the students that like got that notification and had made plans to go back at that time. So I really think that the school should have just played it by ear and not made anything definitive, because it just let people down.
Do you think our government should do the same thing and stop the like setting a date, or do you think we should play it by ear the same way?
Well, I mean, should is kind of an interesting word, because I think that when the government, um, like the government is just setting themselves up for failure as well. I think that the government should just be focusing on solving the issue instead of trying to say like we can reopen the economy by this date. Because I mean, like it's Trump said that we would reopen the economy by Easter. Obviously, that isn't happening. That was way too early. Now it's like mid to late July. So we're just hoping that it's by then, maximum. But yeah, the government has no business in picking when it's going to be over, because we did a terrible job of deciding when it had already started, because by then it was too late. So,
Okay. How has this quarantine business affected you? Has it changed any aspects of your life?
well, um, I mean, during like the first week of this all happening, and I think a lot of people will connect to this. Like basically, it was just one long, unending Netflix binge. The only the only time that binge was interrupted was when I went to sleep, but it started immediately after that was over. And so I think that um, the way that this affected me mainly was it like completely threw me off my schedule and like all of my like the way that I orientated my life completely, which like that's pretty obvious, but coming up with something new was really hard. And I think that most people are sort of just like drifting around right now, and they're, they nobody's really productive, and they can't like actually focus on some of the things that they're passionate about. A lot of people don't even have um, they can't do those things at all, because obviously that would require like things that would go against quarantine. So for me personally, like, you know you and I both, we lost our gym Norterre like everybody else. So my 5 a.m. gym workout completely over, and that's like how I started my day. Um, and so like once the beginning of your day gets completely removed, then after that, even on the weekends where I wouldn't have school, which is similar to what we have now, I still have absolutely no schedule because I can't go out and do things. And so I've had to like reconstruct a quarantine schedule to keep myself from like just going off the rails and deciding to work on other things.
What's that schedule look like?
Well, the thing is, when you, like I was talking about earlier, a lot of people lost their passions and the things that they liked doing. So I've had to like I had to take a while to sort of reconnect with some of the goals that I had set out for myself, but like put on the back burner sort of, because this year, being our senior year, I think a lot of seniors would agree. Like, if you had a sport or a club, like for me, it was debate, that you cared a lot about, you sort of like put that at the forefront, right? Like that was your main thing because it was your last year to do really well in it, and then all of a sudden, you completely lost it. Aside from football players and the wrestling team, um, so uh, like for me, when when debate like our the when the regular like the plan A, what we thought was going to happen, when we lost that, the thing that I had been working towards the whole year, the way I thought it was working, it was going to happen. Like I completely lost that. And so everything that I had been so focused on, I couldn't work on that nearly as much anymore. Or I mean, I wasn't. So for me, the schedule now includes older passions that I hadn't necessarily been focusing on, and now I have more time to work on them. And so I what I do now is I wake up around 7, which is way later than I used to, because I used to wake up at 4:30. But since I have more time in the day, I just end up sleeping more. Um, and I go on like a morning run every day, and then like on some days I'll just do an at-home workout. Um, and then after that, I if it's a school day, I'll like get all the schoolwork done as fast as I possibly can, just so that I don't have to worry about it. And it takes literally an hour, sometimes only 45 minutes um, to do all of that. And then after that, I work on the other things that I wanted to. And I think that's like the shining light out of all of this is I think people are going to come out of the quarantine with more of an appreciation for like the ability to be able to hang out with other people and being social like that, because I think we take it for granted. It's like being able to just go out and communicate with other people like that for us, especially as Americans, that's like as predictable as the sun coming up in the morning, right? Most days. But what, being in quarantine is a lot like being in a shelter in place order if you're living in Syria or somewhere else where obviously our lives aren't nearly as endangered as theirs are. But for us to, lose that sort of human connection, it's sort of, it puts it into perspective, because a lot of people never even actually had that to begin with, because of war-stricken areas or just the circumstances that they are living in. So I mean, I think it's something that's humbling for Americans right now.
How long do you think this that whole sense of not having like taking it for granted is going to last? I say this whole enjoying like being able to go out with friends again will last like a week personally. I don't think, I mean, us Americans are quite wired to, take it in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're very good at being thankful for things in general, but um, I think that like even if it's just for a week, it'll still teach us something. I think that quarantine is going to change us in some ways. Like everybody will, remember what happened during this time. Like a lot of people have said we are living history right now, and I think that's definitely true because the world hasn't had something like this in the modern era, where we're living in and on this scale. Like we had the Ebola outbreak, but that was never, it was never an outbreak within Western countries. And so yet again, it was just something sort of separate from us that we didn't, we took for granted that we weren't affected by that, like the people who were living in Africa were. But the but with the coronavirus, obviously that isn't the case, and in fact, it's affected Western countries worse than it has anywhere else. So I think that even if it does last for a week, it'll still put things into perspective, and hopefully, it will improve our ability to fight things like this again in the future if need be.
Do you think that once they like release all the restrictions we have, that we'll see another spike in
Um,
cases?
It depends on when they do it because actually in China, they lifted restrictions recently and then they had another spike in cases. So the thing is, as long as this virus is like extremely active, like it's sort of like when you get sick, right? Only the body is like the whole world right now. But when you get sick, you have to take more antibiotics than you actually need, or at least you're prescribed that amount, just so that you can make sure it's fully dead before you go back to work and go back to school and stuff. And so I think that when we fight a virus, we need to be thinking about it in that same way, just on a bigger scale. Like we need to have more tests to test which people don't have it before we can allow people to go back out again. And so honestly, I think that when they lift restrictions, if they lift it like next 2 months, we would probably have a pretty good um, rise in cases then. But I think that if we wait until mid to late July, then and like depending on what the situation is with testing and possibly like medicine to help fight it, we would hopefully be able to do that without any huge repercussions.
All right. You mentioned the Chinese having another spike. Do you believe in the numbers that they're giving us?
That's a great question. I i don't see, to believe in something means that you have faith on a matter which you do not know to factually be true. So obviously with the Chinese, it's like obviously I can't know if they are um like I don't, I can't know if what they're saying is true. I would like it to be true. I think we should root for the Chinese and every other country affected by this because um the better that they do, the better that we're all doing because it helps the virus end quicker. But the thing is, like the Chinese said in a press conference after the Trump administration critiqued the numbers by saying that China has always been transparent and open, but like they don't even put the Tiananmen Square massacre in their own history books. So, I mean, they really have no room to talk. And like I want them to show us, not just tell us before we believe the numbers that they're putting out.
Did you see that there was like a report that in China they lost like 21 million like cell phone users?
They lost 21 million cell phone users. Why is that?
Let me look that up. It was like uh basically what happened is like they saw the pings of the cell phone users. Um and what happened was, this is why I really need a Jamie on my podcast.
Yeah, Jamie looked that up real quick.
Yeah, here we go. This is I can't find an article here. It says, why did 21 million phone numbers disappear from China? Major cell phone carriers in China reported a loss of nearly 21 million subscribers in January to February.
So is
Some
that saying that like 21 million people like got sick in China?
That's what
Because I don't know why they'd stop using their phones for any other reason.
the conspiracy is that there's 21 million people dead.
Wow. And like the Chinese just haven't reported that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're deathly ill, which they did not even report that 21 million people got the virus, so that would still be a good indication that they were lying. Um, and the numbers weren't even near that amount. But I mean that makes a pretty compelling case for something going on, because you can't necessarily jump to that conclusion, but what we have is evidence that something happened. So what that something is the question. um, I mean, unless the Chinese said that like they shut down cell phone coverage within a certain area, then I don't really know. You have to remember that the quarantine area that they had originally before the virus spread to other countries was like, that area contained 50 million people. So the idea that 21 million people could have been affected some way that would have caused them to stop using their phone, um, you know, there might be other variables there, but I mean, the real thing that comes out of all of this is the fact that um, like China could have stopped the virus, and there's pretty significant evidence now to say that it was created there. So
Okay. Yeah, I'm just I didn't know what your thoughts were on that conspiracy. I heard it somewhere, and it's definitely something interesting to pull up. Regardless, I feel like I don't know. I don't know if they're quite exactly transparent. I'm with you
I
with the
mean, the thing is, when the dust settles, we're all going to know, because we're going to get insider reporting. And if we find out that 21 million families lost somebody, then obviously that means that the Chinese, um, did not report the correct numbers. But I don't think anybody would necessarily be surprised by that.
yeah. I don't know. It's different. It can like the way they operate and how we operate. It's just wildly starkly different.
No, I mean, yeah, it's the communist dream over there.
So earlier you were talking about how most people lose their passions when it comes to this quarantine, and that other
Right.
people are working on other stuff. What have you been working on?
Um, so like I said, I lost debate, and like a lot of people lost sports. And so for, like I said, a long time, it was just like watching TV all day or playing video games. And I just sort of like, I realized, this is not going to be over soon at all. So I need to figure out something to be productive with this in some way. And before I actually get into the passions that I was doing, that I'm working on now, um, I actually want to talk about like what got me out of that rut, because I think it would benefit a lot of other people too. Have you ever heard of a dopamine detox?
I have not.
You don't? Yeah. Um, well, anyways, do you know what dopamine is?
Yes.
Right. It's like it's basically like sugar for your brain, because it's like the chemical in your brain that it's released when you feel like pleasure or satisfaction. about something. And so the thing is like in a pre-modern society where we didn't have access to entertainment always, the like our society was actually still driven to achieve certain levels of dopamine, right? And this was a common topic among like self-improvement gurus for a long time prior to quarantine. But the big thing now is that now that everybody's in quarantine, it's just constant dopamine without like any stop to it. Because like I said, people like me who like are watching TV too much are just getting constant shots of dopamine, and then they aren't motivated to do anything else. Like, because basically, if you're in a constant state of like mild satisfaction, then there's no reason for you to try to go out and do something that's actually productive or hard at all. Like if you ask somebody, could you watch a 2 hour long movie? They would say, oh, yeah, that's easy. I want to do that right now. But if you said, could you study consistently for like 30 minutes, that would be incredibly harder, even though it takes less. You don't burn calories doing that, but it takes more of your brain power, and you're just simply not motivated to do that as much because there's no dopamine involved with studying, right?
Hmm.
um, one study that was done with rats, to see like the fullest extent that this could go, actually like had rats that were given so much dopamine they would die from not being motivated to actually eat or drink enough water. Like
Oh.
the first thing that went was the rats stopped having sex because they had no motivation for that either. And then the researchers had to like put the food right next to their mouth because otherwise the rats would just sit there and die. They had so much dopamine in their brain. And so, like, no, I don't think anybody's at that point yet. I don't think they could, because like you'd have to be given more of the chemical than your body can produce to put you at that state. But I think that most people, if they ask themselves honestly in quarantine, would probably say that they're not being productive, and they would probably say that there are things that they want to do. So what I did was I started working on the books that I was writing again. I actually started painting again, which is something that I like to do. So I started painting again. Um, and, I've gotten back into working on some online businesses that I've been trying to set up. And like basically all these things were things that I had like started in January, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna work on these here and there from now until the end of school, and then by the time summer hits, I can dedicate myself to them more. But I don't want to that much because I have debate right now, and well, obviously now debate's gone, and the majority of my time, which was school, is gone. So I'm just sort of like, well, I guess I need to get back on those things because I had really neglected them. And it's more rewarding because after I did the detox, which is like, a day that you choose where you don't watch TV, you can't even listen to music, and you have like you don't like you don't scroll through social media. Basically, if it has a screen of some sort, you try to stay away from that as much as possible. After I did that, it wasn't so much that like I felt a whole lot more motivated, because obviously after the detox is over, you can go back to screens. But it was sort of like I felt like I had all this momentum in me that was like that just kept me in the same circle of um not really being productive, and the detox sort of ended that. And so afterwards it was much easier to work on other things because I wasn't just like at a loss for what to do, because during the detox you think a lot about, okay, what are the projects that I want to work on, because I can't do anything involving a screen right now. And so then after that was over, I was like, okay, I want to do all of these things.
Okay. That. Huh. So you did this a week into quarantine.
No, like about 2 weeks in. Yeah.
Interesting. Where'd you learn about this? The rat experiment.
Well, like there's a lot of YouTube videos on it, and I encourage anybody listening or watching to go and like all you got to do is look up dopamine detox into YouTube, and there'll be different people that talk about it and how it's affected them and what they, what tips they have for it. And like within one of those videos, I heard about the experiment, and I heard about the effects of dopamine on the body, and how that relates to our motivation. And honestly, once I learned about it, I realized that I had, like, even when we still had school before quarantine, I was still in probably a really bad dopamine imbalance because of, I guess you'd call them symptoms, which are really just like how I would act on a daily basis. That would probably indicate that, like, I was consuming too much media or too much entertainment. And the thing is, like, it was acceptable because I was still being productive in certain areas, but and like I was still really healthy with my exercise and things like that. So I was still accomplishing goals. But if you're being brutally honest with yourself, I think most people could do a dopamine detox regardless of the quarantine, and maybe do one like once a month, even when this is all over, because I think it's just that beneficial.
Hmm. Wow, that's something I might try pretty soon. But that'd be no podcast. I don't know.
Yeah.
How are your books coming?
Um. So the start of this year, I had a new concept, um, for like a new one that I wanted to write. Um, and this could be like for another podcast idea too, because like the concepts of the book, like I could just talk about those, um, like separate from it. But it was basically about like how you can build a daily routine for maximum productivity, um, and that's sort of like led into a lot of what helped me get out of the rut of quarantine. But the ironic part is, like, I wasn't strong enough to fall into that, or not fall into the rut, because I like the coronavirus was so strange and so different that even somebody like me who had a very consistent schedule that kept me super productive and goal oriented, like, as soon as you fall off that, it's really hard. And so a big part of that book is like not only what schedules are good for us to use and how to use them for maximum productivity, but also like how to get back on the wagon when you fall off. And so that book was like, basically how you can get the most out of your 24 hours in a day, and like how that's affected me as a student, and how different, like, very successful people use their schedules. And so I was going to like give a bunch of different ways in which people can use that, and can like different methods that successful people and like high performance individuals use their day for maximum productivity. And then obviously the one that like you and I talked about in one of your podcasts, talking about like different spiritual topics, and the nature of our relationship with religion. That one's still on the back burner, to be quite honest, just because I think that some of my views on like how I address the issue are probably a bit different now, like in the sense that I don't necessarily care a whole lot about like the religious beliefs of different people. So my motivation is much more in the the first book idea. Um, but I mean, really, right now it's just sort of like trying to stay in touch with um, like not the bad stuff, and do that long enough until I can get into a consistent schedule of just doing the goals that I'm trying to stick with, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Do you still follow the Jocko Willenick Willink philosophy of discipline equals freedom?
Yep, and I'm still taking cold showers. Been on that for a really long time, and I'm not looking back. I don't know if I'll ever go back to hot showers, to be quite honest.
Oh, don't even try it because you'll get hooked on it. I'm
Yeah.
speaking from firsthand experience.
Did you stay on cold showers for like a little while?
Yeah, well, I did it all the way until about December. Whenever it started getting really cold, and then I
Yeah.
just, I didn't. I got soft.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's understandable because, like, if you are about to take a shower and if your hair is going to freeze as soon as you walk outside, like, that's kind of a pretty good motivator to not take a cold shower. But I mean, it's easier when you can go out for a jog and then, you're really hot. So when you jump in the shower, it's not as bad. But obviously, when there's ice on the ground and you're not jogging in the mornings, it's a bit harder.
Yeah. I mean, dude, like I went on a run today. It was so nice.
Mm.
Then I just kind of like chilled out for a little bit outside, and then, you know, even if it's at like a mild temperature, you don't even want to take a cold shower, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. I understand. It's a hard habit to get into, but once you get into it, it's pretty rewarding.
oh, for sure. I did that for 4 or 5 months until I finally caved into the warm showers, but
Yeah.
it did change the way I look at things. So how's debate been online?
Funny you should ask. This last week, we did our first virtual debates, like practice rounds with different members of the squad, and I mean, it's not hard. It's just not enjoyable anymore. I mean, it's honestly like if you're a tennis player, imagine qualifying to state by playing Wii Sports, because that's sort of what we're doing right now. Um, and I mean, it's like it's not that bad, but it's like the question in my mind is, do I really can I really care about this as much as I used to? Because in the past we had this big motivator of getting basically a free trip to, this year would have been Albuquerque, New Mexico for debate nationals, and now it's like I don't get to go and actually have fun with my team. I don't get to get that chance to hang out with those people for one last time, and spend a week together. And so now it's like if I go to nationals, I'm going to be doing it from the table that you see me at now in my basement. So I mean, it's just sort of like it's just like a bad taste in your mouth. I don't like it, but I guess it's better than completely canceling, which is what DECA did. So
Yeah. Um, do you view online school as a joke?
yeah, it's a joke, 100%.
Okay, I'm
But
glad.
I would not rather have teachers be like really hard on us, um, because if you had online school that was like the same workload that we had when we were in school, um, like that would just suck. And like if we had the thing is, I've heard from some students, like I think AP Bio is like they didn't skip a beat with their testing, and their assignments. And I think that's because the teacher like just had worksheets that they'd give the students, and so she can just do that digitally now. Um, but I mean, like it's just like AP testing. I mean, that's the joke now too, because everybody can just look up the answers. And I mean, nobody's not going to, because the thing is, if your scores are based on what everybody else does, then if everybody else is looking up the answers, if you choose not to, then you could do a really good job on the test, but still get like a 3 because the scores just got shifted up. So, I mean, like we all know that in math, everybody's using photo math. Everybody does the quizzes in like 5 minutes. And like I mean, there's no way that it could not be a joke. And I don't know how many people you've asked, but um, the majority of my friends, like we get our homework done sometimes in 30 minutes. So like at most, it's a 2-hour school day. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I wake up, I'll do my little run, and then do this podcast, and then I'm done with all my homework by 1 p.m.
when do you start?
I'll start about noonish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I start at 8, get done at like 9, sometimes 9:30, and it's like okay, now I've got the rest of the day. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you because if we had the same workload, I feel like, I mean, I'm already unmotivated. Senioritis it was kicking hard before we even went on break.
Yeah.
But now more than ever, because I'm chilling at home without like an external drive. But yeah, it's tough. Well,
Yeah,
Bill.
I mean, like I think you did a good job because, um, like you saw a good opportunity to capitalize on, an event that is once in a lifetime pretty much, and you created this, and you, like, I saw you had somebody from the Kansas City Star on there the other day, and I mean, like, that's stepping up, like, that's really cool, that's really serious. um and so I think that you are probably one of the better examples of somebody who's responded to this in a more positive way, especially with, getting in touch or expanding on existing passions like I was talking about.
I appreciate that, man. I when you're stuck at home and you have nothing else to do, I feel like this is a really good thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's good to connect a lot of the students that were already fans of your work, because now, we have something that we all can still listen to and share our ideas with. So,
hmm
yeah.
And then I love hearing your voices, guys. Let me know if you're interested in being on an episode of Trevantine. Yeah, I think I'm trying to keep reaching out, Bill, to more people. Hopefully, we get. I want to do a couple episodes. I want to do a governmental one where we could put a bunch of different political parties in this call and then they should argue. I want to do a religious one, and then I definitely want to get opinions of debate kids on here one time.
Why do you care so much about our opinions, Trevor?
Because you see, opinions off. Nope, not you, Siri. Opinions often change, and I don't want to say I like to. I don't do this to like get people to catch them red-handed or anything, but I just like to hear the different sides of a story to the point where I can formulate my own thoughts.
Yeah, sure.
Because
Uh,
like, go
go.
ahead.
No, I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. Because someone could talk your ear off about one subject, and then
Yeah.
they could tell you all this stuff. But once you hear the other side and it's completely different, it's up to you to make start formulating your thought. It's like the Walter Cronkite, holy cow, Cronkite quote, where if you want to see the truth, you must seek both sides of the story.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, everything's so objective, because if you think about it, um, an argument is like, it's only as valid as the people that were arguing for it. Like,
hmm
if you had an economics professor debate a kindergartner on, different economic political issues, you would not have a very good conclusion to that. And so, I mean, it's like, people believe what they want to believe. It doesn't really matter who they listen to, even if they try their best to be non-biased or super objective. In the end, it's just like, it was whatever, whoever you listen to and whatever attitude you were in. I mean, sometimes our biases are subconscious, but I mean, you try to do the most you can.
For sure. And then plus with students, especially anyone our age, we're the future. And I think,
We are the world.
yeah, it's the best to get our opinions now. Someone walking on you.
Yeah.
All right.
I,
Well, it was a pleasure having you on today. Always love talking to you. Maybe we can get you on again and talk about your philosophy on life and then different spiritual stuff.
well,
Yeah,
if you have that religion podcast, I'd love to be on there, but we got to make sure that the rules are set, and you know people are ready to have certain views challenged. But I mean, like, if everybody goes into it with that mindset, we could have that.
I'll start formulating some rules, man. Did you have any final thoughts? Anything you wanted to tell the world?
No, the world doesn't care about our thoughts. It's just going in its own direction. We are all meaningless, and that's the most special thing about us.
All right, Bill. It was a pleasure talking to you.
All right, Trevor.
And
Uh, Thanks for the laughs, man.
hey, of course. And I love talking to you. You know that. You've been on like 3 of my podcasts now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of a popular face. and I'm happy for that.
Of course, and recurring guests are always great because always a pleasure talking to you, man.
Because you can catch me red-handed if I change.
I could, and I still can.
Yeah.
All right, Bill. Well, you have a great day, man. Keep washing your
All
hands, and don't get sick.
right, I'll try.
All right, have a good one, man.
You too.
And that was the great Bill Bendure, jack of all trades, man, the myth, the legend, person that knows a wicked amount of information about everything. I feel like, from coming back, understanding that no one's going to be productive, enjoying the first 2 weeks, and then his whole detox thing, that was dopamine detox. That was very interesting to see. Definitely something I might look into. It's hard for someone, especially at our age, my age, to do something like this. But a dopamine detox might be something great to do. I know the first couple of days I just started cleaning everything. I cleaned my room and cleaned the floors. I cleaned my bathroom, and then I just kept wanting to do more and more like cleaning and stuff. And then now I'm kind of getting to that point where it's like I don't want to as much because I have all this time. I can sit on my computer, play games all day. I can watch uh Tiger King whenever I want. The dopamine detox is a great idea, and to see that he's capitalizing on all this time, he's making his books, he's painting again, he's working on online businesses. I should have talked to him more about that. That's interesting. I definitely have to talk to him in a future episode about that because that's super interesting. Let me make a note about that. But it's great to see, and then can't wait to see what he comes out with his books. From cold showers to just discipline equals freedom. The whole philosophy behind that is very intriguing. But yeah, that was today's segment on how Corona is affecting us, affecting me. Now let's get on to our news segment where we talk about today's headlines from the New York Times. First headline we have is that the U.S. surpasses Italy in total number of confirmed deaths. Yeah, it's a sad statistic to say. The next headline we have is a Times examination reveals the extent of President Trump's slow response as the virus spreads. Has a bunch of bullet points saying that the National Security Council office responsible for tracking pandemics received intelligence reports in early January predicting on the spread of the virus, and within several weeks raised the opinions like keeping Americans home from work and shutting down large cities. Next bullet point is, despite Mr. Trump's denial, he was told at the time about a January 29th memo produced by his trade advisors Peter Navarro laying out a striking detail on the potential risk of the coronavirus pandemic. The Health and Human Services Secretary directly warned Mr. Trump of the possibility of the pandemic on a call on January 30th. As a second warning, he delivered the president about the virus, and the president said he was being an alarmist. And we also see that the health secretary publicly announced on February that the government was establishing surveillance systems in 5 American cities to measure the spread of the virus. It was delayed for weeks, leaving an administration and officials with almost no insight on how rapidly the virus was spreading. I feel like it's still, once again, a lot of the finger pointing thing. And granted, we could have done something earlier. Can't do anything now. We just got to work on what we can now. I mean, this is just my point of view, and I understand pointing the finger. I point the finger all the time. But when it comes to something like this, we can't just keep railing on someone, railing on an administration when they're trying their best to work on it now. Granted, they should have done it a lot earlier, and if they did do it a lot earlier, we could have saved so many lives. It's just there's nothing that can be done about it now. It's like how my senior year got canceled. Most people are not most people. Some people may be breaking down, and crying, and then not being able to continue on with their lives. But when you see moments like this, you just gotta put your head up and keep going because there's nothing we can do about it, and the only thing we can do is just wait it out. Next headline we have is for vote by mail to work in November. States need to start planning now, and that is 100% true. If we want to have an election by mail, get all these states to plan it now. So late November, whenever this happens, early November, whenever voting happens. I'm 18 now. I can vote. We can get this all established and get it down to the nail, and then everyone can vote because we don't really know how long this pandemic is going to keep planning out. And like Bill was saying, it could spike up again and we might be put on another restriction. It might happen. Next headline we have is New York City schools will be closed through the end of the academic year, the mayor said, but not according to Governor Cuomo, where he responds not so fast. Yeah, I mean it's interesting to see. Apparently Cuomo has some more hope than their mayor has, but I don't know. We'll see. Missouri, Kansas, a couple other states have closed schools through the academic years, so a lot of seniors aren't getting their senior graduation or their final goodbyes, and I feel that personally. Next one we have is that the coronavirus is ravaging through nursing homes around New York as well as Washington State grapples with its losses. Next headline we have is it's heartbreaking. Farms are destroying millions of pounds of fresh goods that they can no longer sell. So looking into this article, I was thinking, oh, they're destroying this because people aren't going to the grocery stores, but that's not true. They're destroying it because of all the businesses and like restaurants that were open at one point aren't able to like get their fresh produce anymore. For example, say the place I work at, Johnny's Jazz Bar and Grill. They're no longer open. They are part of a movie theater alongside their restaurant. So what happens is whenever they close down the movie theater, they close down the restaurant. They're not making any more food, so whoever their distributor was isn't getting paid anymore, and they had all these excess crops that they were like, made, they've already made. Now they just got to destroy them because I guess there's nowhere to put them. Supermarkets are going to be tough to be filled. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know how that really plays out. But the next headline we have is Republicans press for a $250 billion bill to replenish small business programs as governors push for more aid. It says top Republican congressional leaders said on Saturday that they would continue for a push on a standalone infusion of $250 billion to replenish a fast depleting loan program for distressed small businesses, rebuffering their Democratic counterparts who demanded conditions on new money and additional funds for hospitals, state and local food governments, and food aid. Yeah, I mean, small businesses are hurt, people are being hurt, and it's right now it's coming down to who's footing the bill. As long I don't want it, no one wants to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way, but it's gonna tear our country up to see who wins and who doesn't, especially when it comes to the biggest price of all, human life. But yeah, that's all the headlines we have for today. Now we go to the third segment. We're gonna talk about what I'm doing today. This morning I woke up at about 9:30, got out of bed about 10, had some pancakes, sausage, put peanut butter on those pancakes. Perfect. Then I went downstairs, went to my room. I watched a little bit of Joe Rogan. Love that man to death. His podcast is great. Did that, went on a 5.3 mile run. It was like 70 degrees out, so the weather was perfect. Not gonna lie, I ran it at like a 49. I'll just pull it up right now. I got like a 52-minute pace. I tried cutting you guys off a little bit, but yeah, it was pretty slow. Average pace was about 9.48 minutes, and I'm no marathon runner. I'm no long, fast distance runner. I just my gym's closed and I have nothing better to do, so I'll burn some calories doing running. Granted I'm gonna lose all my muscle, which sucks, but I guess I can restart. I've been known to be more of a Dorito shape, bigger on the top and having no legs, but I can still lift a lot with my legs, so that's intriguing how that works. Then I did some resistance band workouts, a core workout, and just lifted what I could. But yeah, and then I ate. I had some wings and some ribs my dad prepared today, and then yeah, I think I'm gonna go maybe, I don't know. My broadcasting teacher, Miss Higgins, she has a little like assignment for us seniors. She wants to do a senior episode, which we usually do a senior show for KNET, but since we can't have KNET anymore, we have to change things up. So she's requesting 4 different things. I think it's like a picture of us as a baby, a favorite picture of us, our favorites, KNET memory, and then something else I don't know off the top of my head. But I might do that and then play some CS:GO tonight. A lot of my pals and I have been grinding CS:GO, trying to get to become the very best. And it's we've been playing, we've been having a good time, so nothing wrong with that. And yeah, that's basically my day. I might watch some more movies, watch something else. I don't know. It changes every day on what I want to do. It ends up I just play video games all day, but as long as I'm having fun, right? So yeah, that's been today's episode of Trevantine. That's the way it's going to be for a while. Keep washing your hands, and until next time, I'll see you guys on Monday, or I'll catch you on the north side.